People always say graveyards are quiet at night. They're wrong. It isn't silence you'll find out there. It's something else entirely. Something that doesn't need permission to be there. My name is Elliot Marsh. I work the night shift at a county graveyard in rural New Mexico, 2 miles off the main road, surrounded by dry land and scrub brush that never grows past your waist. From the highway, you wouldn't even notice it, unless you already knew where to look. My shift runs from 9 at night to 5 in the morning. I walk the rows, I check for damage, I make sure nobody's jumped the fence. Most nights it's routine. Most nights. There's a small office next to the maintenance shed where old records are kept. Not just burial logs, county reports, incident notes, things that never made it into any official system. A lot of it's handwritten. Some of it goes back decades. When I first started, I didn't pay much attention to any of that. Just paperwork. Names, dates, plot numbers. But that changed after a few months. You spend enough time walking those rows alone, and you start to notice things. Certain graves get disturbed, not destroyed, just shifted. Soil that settles wrong. Footprints where there shouldn't be any. And when you check the records, the same names keep coming up. Not because of who they were, but because of what ended up in the ground beside them. Row 18, plot 42. The marker belongs to a rancher named Samuel Kern, a cattleman from just outside a small town near the Mesa. He was buried in 1998, but his file started 6 weeks before he died. Something had gotten into his livestock pen at night. Killed 4 animals without breaking the fence, without forcing the gate, without leaving a single drop of blood on the ground. Coyotes make a mess. Dogs make a worse one. Whatever killed those animals didn't tear them apart like a normal predator. They were found on their sides, legs stiff, eyes open, bodies intact, except for 2 puncture wounds below the jaw, and something wrong along the lower ribs. 2 nights later, 6 more animals. Same pen, same method. Samuel sat outside with a rifle and a spotlight. Just after 3 in the morning, the livestock started pressing hard against the fence. He turned on the light, and he saw it. About the size of a large dog, but too thin through the middle. Its back raised higher than its head. Stiff ridges running down the spine from neck to tailbone. Patchy gray skin, dark matted fur around the shoulders and hips. Its front legs, longer than the rear. When the light hit it, it didn't run. It turned, and it looked at him. 3 men waited in that barn the following night, at 2:40 in the morning. The pen went quiet, not peaceful quiet. The kind that happens when every living thing stops making sound, all at once. And then, the thing came under the fence. It flattened itself, pushed its front half through the bottom wire, and dragged the rest of its body through, like its ribs could fold. Narrow head, long ears folded flat against the skull, a mouth that opened wider than it should have, short, crowded teeth, sharp all the way around, and its eyes reflected orange in the flashlight beam. Orange, like a roadside reflector. They fired multiple shots. They saw the impact. It screamed, not a growl, not a bark, a high, tearing sound that sent every animal in the pen slamming into the fence. It took buckshot across the ribs, a shot through the lower chest, a final round from less than 10 feet that blew out part of its neck. Even then, it kept crawling towards Samuel, dragging its back half behind it, snapping its mouth open and shut. Nobody would take the body. Not the vet, not animal control, not state wildlife. By the 3rd day, it smelled so bad that the sheriff ordered it buried in the county graveyard, in an unmarked hole near the back service road. No marker, no record in the public log, just a handwritten note with a plot number and the words, "Animal remains, sealed box." Samuel Kern died 9 days later. The bite on his arm had turned black around the edges by the second day. The tissue kept dying even after they cut it away. By the end of the week, he was strapped to the bed, his fever so high he kept trying to get up. He told his wife there were more of them, that the one they killed had been sick, that something else had driven it down from the hills. He died before sunrise. Row 11. Plot 67. The marker reads, Calvin Reyes. Died 2006, age 32. In the weeks before Calvin died, multiple calls across town, all describing the same basic situation. Someone showing up where they shouldn't be. Not breaking in. Just appearing. At doors, windows, backyards. Standing there long enough to be seen, and then leaving. Different neighborhoods. Different people. But the descriptions lined up in ways that made no sense. Same height, same build, same face. The face of Calvin Reyes. One witness let it in. Said it walked through her apartment slowly, touching things, pictures, furniture, door frames. When she looked at it up close, the eyes didn't line up with the rest of its expression. The way its mouth moved didn't match the words. Calvin Reyes was found dead outside of town the next day, and then the sightings continued. Same face, same movement. Tied to a man who was already buried. What they found on the ground that night, after the shots, didn't match Calvin's body from the recovery report. The proportions had shifted slightly, even after it stopped moving. The face still looked like Calvin, but up close, the features didn't hold together the way a real face does. They buried it under Calvin Reyes's name. One grave, one marker, 2 bodies tied to it. His sister told me before she left that night. Because that's the only place it stays, one thing. The 4th section has no marker. Walk the graveyard during the day and you won't see anything. No headstone, no plaque, no row post, just a stretch of dry ground behind the last line of older graves, where the land dips slightly, and the fence curves around it instead of cutting straight through. That curve was not an accident. In 1931, a crew was sent to clear that land for expansion. On the second day, one of the men struck stone while digging. When they cleared the area, it wasn't a rock, it was a flat surface, smooth. The report described it as finished, like it had been shaped, not formed. No cracks, no grain, no natural break lines. It extended in every direction they tested. By the end of the 3rd day, they'd uncovered a section 15 feet across. The edges were still not visible. And then they found the markings. Shallow grooves across the surface, lines, curves, intersecting shapes, not letters, not symbols anyone recognized. One of the workers reported hearing something from below the stone, not around it, below it. That night, one man woke to find the fire had gone out. The ground around the trench looked darker, like the light wasn't hitting it right. When he stepped closer, he realized it wasn't the light. Something was standing there. He saw 2 points of light where the face should have been, not reflections, not firelight, glowing low and steady like coals in a furnace. The foreman fired. The shot hit center mass. The thing reacted, but not the way an animal does. It didn't jerk or fall. It shifted, like something inside it had absorbed the force, and then settled again. And then it moved faster. One man ran. He heard shots behind him. He heard one of the men screaming. And then, a sound he couldn't describe. Not an animal, not a human voice. Something deeper, louder, like the ground itself, splitting open. When the sheriff's men arrived at sunrise, the 4 men who stayed behind were dead. Bodies laid out around the trench, spaced evenly, arms extended, faces intact, eyes open. Cause of death listed as cardiac failure, all 4. They didn't transport it. They collapsed the trench, filled it with dirt and rock, and buried it right there. No coffin, no marker, no record, just covered, layered, and sealed. That's what this place actually is. People drive past the gate during the day. They see rows of stones, trimmed grass, names carved into markers. They think everything here belongs to the same category. It doesn't. I know which graves to check after a storm. I know which ones sink faster than they should. I know which sections of the fence line I don't have to worry about, and which ones I still look at every time I pass, even when nothing has moved in years. They chose this ground for a reason. They needed somewhere controlled, somewhere already set aside for strange things. A place where digging is tracked, where movement gets noticed, where anything out of place stands out immediately. That's what a graveyard is. It's not just for the dead. It's also for containment.